The day I turned 18 was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, it was the day my parents shoved a packed duffel bag into my arms and told me to get out. No warning, no discussion, just, "You're an adult now. Figure it out." I stood in our driveway, stunned, as they slammed the door behind me. I had no job lined up, no savings, and nowhere to go. My parents? They went back inside and probably watched television like nothing happened. For the next few years, I bounced around, slept on friends' couches, worked under-the-table jobs, and scraped by however I could. The nights I spent in my car were the worst. Winter was brutal, but I kept going, working towards something better, even when it felt impossible. Fast forward to now, I made it. Not just made it, but thrived. I took some risks, placed a few strategic bets on sports, and hit big. 6 figures big. Enough to change my life. I went from struggling to put gas in my car to having the kind of money that opens doors. And that's when my parents came crawling back. A week after my big win, I got a text from my mother. "Sweetheart, we heard the amazing news. We are so proud of you. Let's get together soon. We miss you so much." I stared at my screen. Miss me? They hadn't called, texted, or checked on me in years. Not once did they ask if I was okay. I didn't respond. 2 days later, my dad called. I let it go to voicemail. His message was full of awkward small talk before he slipped in. "Your mother and I could really use some help with bills. You know, times have been tough. We're still your parents, after all." Ah, there it was. I ignored it. Then came my aunt, their flying monkey. "Honey, I know things were rough, but they raised you for 18 years. Don't you think you owe them something? Just a little?" Owe them? Like they owed me a home when I was barely an adult? I was furious, but I wasn't going to let it show. Instead, I got an idea. I texted back, "Of course, let's have dinner and catch up, my treat." My parents were thrilled. "We knew you wouldn't hold a grudge," my mom gushed. Little did they know, I had something planned. I picked the most expensive steakhouse in town, the kind with gold-flaked Wagyu and a wine list that starts at 3 digits. I made a reservation under my name and waited for the night to arrive. When they saw me at the restaurant, they practically ran to hug me. I let them. We sat, and they launched into their performance. "We're just so happy to see you doing well. We always knew you were destined for great things," my dad said, raising his glass. My mom nodded. "We're so sorry for everything that happened before. We made mistakes, but family sticks together, right?" I played along, nodded, smiled, let them believe I was buying their act. Then came the moment I was waiting for. "We don't want to make things awkward," my dad said, setting down his fork, "but we could really use a little financial help, just to get back on our feet. The house needs repairs, and your mother's medical bills." Mom dabbed her eyes with a napkin for dramatic effect. "Of course," I said, leaning forward. "I completely understand." They exhaled in relief. "Which is why I wanted to do something special," I continued. "I already paid for this meal. And as a bonus, I made a donation in your name." Their eyes lit up. "A donation? To what?" I slid an envelope across the table. "To the local homeless shelter, in honor of what you did for me." My mother's face went pale. My father's jaw tightened. I leaned back, watching them squirm. "After all, you kicked me out with nothing. So I figured, why not help people who actually deserve a fresh start?" My dad's face turned red. "That's not funny." "Oh, I'm not joking," I smiled. "You taught me to be self-sufficient. Best lesson I ever learned." Mom's voice wobbled. "We were just trying to prepare you for the real world. We thought you'd come back." "Funny, because the door was locked every time I tried." More silence. They had nothing to say because they knew I was right. The waiter came by with the bill. I snatched it before my father could grab it and paid in full. Don't worry, I got it. Think of it as my final gift to you. I stood up. Oh, and about the money? You're not getting a cent. But good luck with those bills. And with that, I walked out, leaving them with their untouched glasses of overpriced wine and a reality check they never saw coming. It's been months, and I haven't heard from them since. I doubt I ever will. I took that money and did something worthwhile with it. Set up a savings fund, invested wisely, and even donated a chunk to organizations that help young adults who are in my exact situation. Because that's what real family does help, without conditions. As for my parents, they can figure it out, just like they told me to.
Let me start by saying this. I love my husband. Truly, deeply. We've been through so much together: career struggles, raising kids, and even surviving infidelity. Yeah, that last part stings, but I forgave him. I believed in second chances. But now, I don't know what to believe anymore. A few nights ago, my husband was admitted to the hospital. He's too young for this, but his heart has been giving him trouble. Heart failure. The words alone send a cold wave of fear through me. We have kids, a life. The thought of losing him, unbearable. It started with chest pains and dangerously low blood pressure. I practically dragged him to the ER at 4 a.m. He was barely coherent, but I knew he was scared too. They admitted him and decided to do a procedure, one that required him to be put under. Before they wheeled him off, the nurse asked for his phone and belongings. He handed them to me without hesitation, squeezing my hand before they took him away. I sat by his hospital bed, phone in my lap, watching the seconds crawl by. Then it rang. I missed the call by a second, and when I went to check who it was, I realized I needed his PIN. No problem, I thought. We've had the same one for 2 years. My fingers moved automatically. Error. Incorrect PIN. My stomach dropped. Maybe I typed it wrong? I tried again. Wrong. I knew that PIN like the back of my hand. I used it all the time, grabbing things from his phone for him, putting in grocery orders, handling small stuff when his hands were full. So why? Did it change? At first, I told myself I was overreacting. People change passwords all the time, right? Maybe it was a security thing. Maybe he just forgot to tell me. But the longer I sat there, staring at that locked screen, the more my mind spun in circles. Why change it now, right before being admitted? Why would he make sure I couldn't access his phone? And then, the ugly thoughts crept in. He cheated before. We went to hell and back to fix our marriage, but trust, once broken, never quite fits back together the same way. I stared at that black screen for what felt like hours. At some point, a nurse brought me coffee. At some point, the sun started rising. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. The next morning, his phone buzzed again. A text this time. "Hey babe, thinking of you. I miss you." I froze. My lungs stopped working. "Babe, thinking of you. I miss you." This wasn't from a family member checking in. This wasn't from a coworker. This felt wrong. I gripped the phone so tight my fingers ached. I knew I shouldn't assume. Maybe it was innocent. Maybe I was jumping to conclusions. But I knew better, didn't I? The PIN change, the secrecy, and now this. A fire burned in my chest. My hands were shaking. I had spent all night terrified for his life, and meanwhile, Waith was texting someone else behind my back? I needed answers. When he finally woke up after the procedure, his voice was hoarse, weak. "Hey, babe," he croaked, smiling through the haze of painkillers. The endearment made me sick. I forced a smile. "Hey, how are you feeling?" "Tired," he muttered. "But better." I watched him for a long moment. He looked so vulnerable, so fragile, but all I could think about was that damn message. So I asked, softly, carefully, "I tried to check your phone earlier. I needed to call someone, but the PIN didn't work." His expression didn't change, but I noticed the way his fingers twitched. Oh, yeah, I changed it a couple days ago. I swallowed hard. Why? His eyes flicked to me, then away. Just security reasons. I felt like I was suffocating. What kind of security reasons? Silence. A heavy, telling silence. And then, before I could stop myself, I whispered, "Who texted you this morning?" His head snapped toward me so fast I thought he might have worsened his condition. What? A message popped up. "Hey babe, thinking of you. I miss you." Who was that? His face drained of color, and that was all the confirmation I needed. At first, he tried to deny it. That must be a wrong number. Then, when he saw the look on my face, he changed tactics. "Okay, it's not what you think. She's just a friend." A friend. Right. I stood up so fast my chair scraped against the tile. My heart was pounding. Are you serious? This is happening again? When I've been sitting here terrified for your life, you've been texting. My voice cracked. I couldn't finish. He was panicking now. Wait, please, let me explain. I almost laughed. Explain what? That I was stupid for ever trusting him again? That I was just a placeholder while he got his ego stroked by someone else? And then, the final twist. In his desperate attempt to backtrack, he muttered, "It's not like I love her or anything. Her. I felt like the wind had been knocked out of me, because those words confirmed everything. Not a wrong number, not a misunderstanding. There was someone else. I took a step back. I can't believe this. My voice was barely a whisper. I forgave you. I chose you. And this is what I get? He reached for my hand, his own trembling. It's not like that, I swear. I yanked my hand away. Save it. I turned, walked straight out of that hospital room, and I didn't look back. It took me 3 days to come back. 3 days to decide what I wanted. By the time I did, I wasn't crying anymore. I wasn't even angry. I was just done. I walked into his hospital room with a duffel bag and placed it on the chair. "Clothes for when you're discharged?" I said, my voice empty. His eyes were bloodshot. "Baby, please!" "I'm not your baby." I stared at him for a long time, at the man I had once given everything to, the father of my children, the person I thought was my partner. I saw him for what he was. Small, weak, a coward who had everything and still threw it away. I turned to leave. He called my name, desperation thick in his voice. I didn't turn back, because I was done. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free.